I love making goals. I love New Year's because I love resolution. For me, making a goal that I know I have a set period of time to accomplish it in is so motivating. I have researched methods for goal making to be more effective. I used to go crazy and make like 50 to 100 New Year's resolutions a year. Part of that was because I love lists, and checking something off my list is a very satisfying thing. So I used to make goals where I knew I would do it, and so I would check it off my list, and that would spur me on to the rest of my 50 to 100 New Year's resolutions. I don't make that many anymore, usually, but I have done so much research into making goals. I have troubleshooted techniques for goal making in my own life, and here is how I make goals that stick. Because that's the hard part, right? It's not hard to make a goal, it's hard to actually follow through and do it. My first pointer is be specific. Your goal has to be something that you can actually accomplish and that you know when you accomplished it or not, which sounds really obvious and straightforward, but the classic example is I want to exercise more. So let's say that's your goal. You get to the end of a month and you are like, oh, I went to the gym twice. That is more than I did last month, so I have exercised more. Was that actually what you meant when you made the goal? Possibly yes, but also possibly no. And so the way to avoid getting yourself into that hole where technically you can cross it off your list, but actually that's not really how you wanted it to go, is to be specific. With New Year's resolutions, there is this idea that you have to make goals for a whole year. Maybe the way you approach it is to make a goal for the whole year, but then reassess after 1 month. See what you do in January, see how it fit you, and then maybe you change it for the next month or for the rest of the months. Goals do not need to be rigid. Sometimes you have specific things that you have to do. They have to look a certain way in order to be achieved, like run a marathon. In order to run a marathon, you actually do need to run a marathon. Maybe that means signing up for a specific marathon and running that marathon. Maybe it means just running a marathon length because you can't afford to run a marathon, or there are no marathons near where you are and you can't get to one. Figure out how to make your goals suit your life, your situation. No matter where you are, no matter what happens, you can still make a goal adjust to your life, even if it seems rigid. I feel like making goals suit your life is so important when goal making. Sometimes circumstances happen that are out of your control, but just because things happen that you weren't expecting doesn't mean that that throws all of your goals out the window. Things do not have to look the way you envision them looking to be a success, to actually be what you wanted them to be. This is true so often with life. I think I know what I want, I think I know what it's going to look like, and I live my life, I do what I want, but it looks so different than what I was envisioning. And that's not wrong. And that's not wrong with goals either. So have a mindset where things can look different than you think they will, but still be a success. You also, when making goals, you need to get over your fear of commitment. I feel like this is a really good reason to make goals, because in society right now, there is this fear of commitment. especially in LA where I've lived for a while, like, it's like, why would I commit to one thing when something better might come along? And I think that that is in society as a whole. And so whether you have just a little bit of fear of commitment or like a lot of fear of commitment, making a goal and sticking with it is a very low stakes way of overcoming your fear of commitment. Like, if you decide, like, I'm not going to drink coffee on Saturday for the whole year, you can stick with that and be committed to that and monitor your progress. And then at the end of the year, you can say, I took 1/7 of my time off from drinking coffee. And that's amazing. And like, it's a goal, it's very low stakes, but I feel like the practices that we do in the low stakes things translate into the high stakes things. So then when you're in like a bigger situation with a lot more riding on the line, you know that you can be committed to a goal and stick with it and get it done even when it's hard. Which sounds funny because it's like, oh, maybe I won't drink coffee one day of the week, or like maybe I'm doing this stupid goal that I made as a New Year's resolution on January 1st, like whatever. But actually that is really powerful for mindset and for your heart, and to know that you can actually stick with something. So overcome your fear of commitment and make at least one goal that you can actually do. Which is another great point, because your goals have to be goals that you can actually do. For instance, if you do not have very much money and your goal is, I'm going to make $10 million this year, like, that is like a great goal. And if you have the capability to make $10 million, that's a great goal. And if you have like ways to actually like make $10 million, that's a great goal. You know, I'm not hating on $10 million. But if you're like a normal person who doesn't have lots of money and isn't starting huge businesses and, you know, isn't great at the stock market, then really you should ask yourself, how do you think you're going to make $10 million? If you have a way, great. But if you don't have a way and you're just expecting things to like work out and like $10 million will be in your bank account by the end of the year, you need to rethink that, because that's not really in your control. Like some really kind old man meeting you on a bus bench and then deciding to bequeath his entire estate to you when he dies, and then he tragically, you know, dies of old age in his sleep 2 weeks later, and then you get $10 million. Like, not in your control. Don't make goals that are out of your control. Make goals that you can actually do. Another example, climb Mount Everest. To climb Mount Everest, you actually need a lot of skill and you need the money to do it. For like the equipment and getting there and getting to base camp and like having a guide if you need a guide, and I don't know, all the things that are involved in climbing Mount Everest. It's more than just like, I'm gonna go climb Mount Everest. So like, you have to prepare for that and you have to have the resources to be able to do that. Climb a mountain is different than climb Mount Everest. Pick things that you can actually do, that you're actually working towards, and you're not just like, oh, that would be nice if that happened, because then that makes it abstract, and those are not very good goals. Like, things that you can absolutely not do are not good goals. And maybe the place for those things is like a list of like, it would be great if these things happened, but that's not something that you're like actively working towards, and a goal is something that you are actively working towards. So keep yourself on topic and focus. Focus. What goals can you actually do? Like, make realistic things. Like, they can be optimistically realistic. They should not be pessimistically realistic. Avoid pessimism. If you have a weight loss goal, like make a weight loss goal. Make it maybe bigger than you think you can handle, or like the top of what you think you can handle, but then like have a plan to accomplish that goal. I think that it's better to have like big vision than small vision. Go big, don't go small, but then just don't let any like disappointment derail you from keeping on. Because sometimes our goals don't happen right away, they don't happen as fast as we want them to, especially when you're learning new things, you're doing new things, you're doing new like exercise. Like results come slow in the beginning often. We as humans prefer things that have big results in the beginning because then we feel like we're being really successful and doing lots of things. But like the long game is about being willing to have small results in the beginning, knowing that in the long term it will pay off. So especially if you're doing things like workout goals or weight loss goals, or like things that take time and have a process, know in yourself, and also maybe write yourself a little note next to your goal of like, this takes time and it is okay if it does not happen right away or as fast in the beginning as you want it to, because like it's, some things don't, and it's not wrong, it just is the process. The most game changing goal making principle for me in my life was to focus on what I want rather than what I don't want. I was in a conversation with a friend recently who said that one of their goals for next year was to avoid toxic people. Don't be friends with them, cut any toxic people out of his life, like avoid toxic people. But a different way of looking at that goal is add better people to your life. If you meet someone who you know is a toxic person and you don't get along with and you don't want, and you feel their negativity bringing you down and all that stuff, like you're not going to want to be friends with them. And so like the point of that goal in this situation was, you know, to add better people to their life. And it was like, it's not just avoiding toxic people, because you can't just avoid toxic people because you don't know who they are until you talk to them. And sometimes like you work with them, or you know, you run into them at the gym, or you're in the same clubs or community, and you can't just avoid like toxic people all the time no matter what, because they don't have a name tag on their head. And so the heart behind that goal was that the people they wanted to add to their life were not toxic, which is like obvious, but like we're good people. And so we kind of like spun the goal around what do you actually want to focus on, so that you're going into a conversation and you're not thinking, is this person toxic? Is this person toxic? Is this person toxic? Do I want to talk to them ever again? Do I want to allow them in my life? Are they toxic? You know, but rather if you're focusing on like, I want to add good people to my life, when you're in a conversation, you're saying, is this person a good person? In what ways are they good? Do I get along with them? You know, and it's not, it's better. It's a better perspective. It's also like, then you're dwelling on the good. You're not just trying to find little tiny ways that signify, or like you're not just looking for red flags in everyone, trying to see if they're toxic, and if you can spot it as soon as possible to avoid them. Fair, but like that's not what you want to go into conversations looking for. How can you spin your goals so that you are focusing on the positive? Because even though like avoiding toxic people is a good goal to have, if that's your goal, then you're thinking about toxic people and toxicity and like red flags and all these things in your head, which like isn't what you want to be dwelling on. You want to pay attention to what your mind is thinking about a lot. If you want to make your goals help you in having a better internal monologue, Make your goals about positive things. Make them about the positive instead of the negative. And this can be like almost any goal. Make it about the thing that you want. What's the heart behind your goal? Why are you making this goal? To get better people in your life. Okay, then that should be the goal, because that's the direction you want to go, rather than the direction you want to avoid, because like that's what you're going to be focusing on and dwelling on, and that's what's going to be in your mind and your mindset. Even if you meet toxic people, you're not going to want to add them to your life. You're going to be able to tell the difference. So give yourself some credit for being able to recognize the negative without dwelling on the negative, and focus on the positive of what you want your goal to be, because that's going to propel you forward. Even with momentum, the principle of momentum, you know, when you're going, you keep going. But when you stop, you lose your momentum. So like, for instance, have long nails. Instead of stop biting your nails, have long nails. Like, honestly, I had to just discipline myself a lot to stop biting my nails. And it was like a habit, but to have long nails, I have to stop biting my nails. I also have to like take care of my nails, which you don't really have to do when you just bite your nails all the time. So those are just a few of the ways that I make goals that actually work. I make goals that stick. I'm a very self-disciplined person, and these are some pointers to help you be a little bit more disciplined in your goal making, and also set yourself up for success. Because sometimes we make goals that are just really hard and impossible and are screwing us over before we even start them. And we don't want to do that, especially if you want to stick with your goals. It's so important to just do the groundwork at the beginning so that you can actually accomplish what you want to do when you're doing it. Thanks for hanging out today, and it is almost a new year. I will see you in the next one.